In the portion of Vayeitzei, and similar in the portion of Vayishlach, we speak about angels 3 times. They tell a story that a rabbi was coming to a new synagogue for a prabba to try out to be the rabbi, and he brought a letter with him, a reference letter from another synagogue, and the president of the previous synagogue said, this rabbi is so special, he's like Moses, he's like Shakespeare, and he's like an angel. And the synagogue was so excited that without even hearing the rabbi, they right away gave him a contract for a lifelong contract. He gets up that Shabbos to speak, and it is awful. It's terrible. He can't say 2 words straight. He doesn't make any sense. It was a misery. After Shabbos, the new president calls up the old president of the previous synagogue and says, what did you do here? You tricked me. You told me this rabbi is amazing and he's terrible. How could you lie to me like this? He says, what are you talking about? I told you the truth. I said he's like Moses. He's like Moses. Moses had a lisp. He has a lisp. I told you he's like Shakespeare. Shakespeare was a drunk. He's a drunk. And I told you he's like an angel. He's like an angel. An angel is nishkei mensch. He's also nishkei mensch. What is the meaning that Yaakov Avinu saw angels going up the ladder, going down the ladder? At the end of the Parsha, he sees 2 sets of angels. He calls it Machanoim. And then he sends angels to his brother Esav. Interesting to note that at the end of the Parsha, he sees 2 sets of angels, in contrast to the beginning of the Parsha. In the beginning of the Parsha, it says he has a dream. He sees angels going up the ladder and then down the ladder. Rashi says, why first up, then down? Says Rashi, the logician, the classic commentator of the Torah, that the angels of Israel were going back up because they were the angels that were escorting Yaakov in the land of Israel. Now that Yaakov was leaving the land of Israel, Vayeitzei, he was going out of the land of Israel. So now they cannot leave Israel, so they have to go back up. A second set of angels come down, and these second set of angels are escorting Yaakov into the diaspora, to Haran. Yet, when he comes back after being in the house of Laban for over 20 years, it says that he sees 2 sets of angels. He sees the set of angels that were escorting him in the house of Lavan, in the diaspora. And now, the angels of Israel come outside of Israel to greet him and to escort him back into the land of Israel. So at this moment, he has 2 sets of angels. Right after that, we move on to Parsha Vayishlach, and it says how Yaakov sends angels to Esav. Now, we know the Torah is not simply a history book, but Torah means Hira'ah, a lesson on daily life. What is the message and what is the lesson of the Torah portion to all of us today? Ethics of Our Fathers tells us in chapter 4, Mishnah number 11. For every deed that we do, we create an angel. If we do a good deed, we create a good angel. If we do a bad deed, we create a bad angel. A good word, a good angel. A bad word, a bad angel. If we pronounce or mispronounce a word in the davening, in our prayers, we create a crippled angel. So throughout the day, we are an angel factory. We are constantly producing angels every moment. Now, the soul of every one of us started off in heaven, comes down to this world. And our job is to transform the world. But we have two general types of angels. We have the angels of Israel, and we have the angels of the diaspora. The angels of Israel are angels we create when we do holy things. We study Torah, we come together for a women's Torah class, we daven, we give tzedakah, we say Tehillim, we light Shabbos candles, we have a Shabbos meal. When we do holy things, we are creating angels of Israel, Malachim of Eretz Yisrael. When we do earthly things, we eat, and we drink, and we do business, and we play golf, and we jog, and we play tennis, we are creating earthly angels. Now, both of these angels are essential. Both of these angels are called Malachi Elokim. They're called angels of God. Now, what does it mean, in a practical sense, to have an angel of God? Now, it doesn't say Malachi Havaya, Malachi Hashem, but rather it says Malachi Elokim. What's the difference between Malachi Elokim and Malachi Hashem? Elokim is one of the 7 names of God that are holy names that one is not allowed to pronounce in vain or erase, God forbid. But each name has a different meaning. The Torah tells us that the name of Elokim represents koyach v'chayzik. It represents strength and energy. In other words, when we create an angel, we are creating new strength and new energy. And the angel is being created from our strength and energy. In other words, the angel is beyond man. The angel is nishkei mensch. An angel is not human. It's beyond our human capacity. When a person goes outside of their comfort zone, when the person goes outside of their nature, they are creating now angels. These angels represent their connection with God that is done through strength and energy and motivation. And it's done with koyach, with strength, with energy. In other words, when we do a mitzvah, and we do it with excitement, we do it with vitality, we do it with exuberance, we are now creating a strong, healthy angel, a Malachi Elokim, an angel that is strong, an angel of God. This answers a statement in Malachi, the angel or the prophet Malachi, who was called Malachi, according to many of the commentators, because he was like an angel of God. And he says, you will see the difference between Oved Elokim, the one who serves Elokim, Oved Elokim, to those who don't serve God. And the Gemara says, what's the difference between one who serves God and one who does not serve God? Says the Gemara, one who serves God studies the Talmud 100 times. One who does not serve God, one who does not serve God studies the Talmud 100 times. One who serves God studies the Talmud 101 times. The difference between not serving and one serving and yes serving is one time. In other words, it's going beyond your comfort zone. It's going beyond your nature. It's giving that extra push, that extra strength. That is the way we create Malachi Elokim, angels of God. Angels of God represent the person, the human being, going and constantly growing and going beyond his nature. And therefore you have 2 types of angels. You have the angels of the diaspora, who are called Malachi Elokim, and you have angels of God, which are called Malachi Eretz Yisrael, the angels of Israel. So when we refine ourselves physically, we are now creating angels of the diaspora. And we continue to move higher and higher. We also refine ourselves spiritually. And therefore we create now angels of God. Now we can understand this through the following example, that angels are also known as spiritual animals. They're known to be spiritual animals. When it comes to an animal, The Torah tells us what is a kosher animal? One that chews its cud and has split feet. This is a kosher animal. And therefore this applies also to the Malachi Elokim, these spiritual animals, these angels of God. What is the meaning that a kosher animal has to have split feet? So first and foremost, the mere fact that we say that a kosher animal needs 2 signs, the number 2 in Judaism, and similarly the fact that Yaakov Avinu came to Machanoim, the camp that had 2 sets of angels, implies the idea of infinity. 2 represents infinity. For the Gemara says, pertaining to sending away the mother bird, Shaleach teshalach esa'im, you shall surely send her away, says the Gemara, even 100 times. Now, the commentaries explain even 100 times means even more than 100 times. In other words, when you do something twice, it means you do it a 3rd time, you do it a 4th time, you continue, you don't stop. And the same is true by the fact that the Torah says that you need 2 signs for a kosher animal, implies that we always have to grow and constantly ascend higher and higher. But these 2 signs individually also represent a unique approach to how we have to serve God. The first thing is that the animal has to be mafreses Parsha, which means it has to have split hoofs. It's going in 2 different directions. And that is a person in their life is constantly looking to grow. Even though right now we're doing one project, and we're totally involved in that project, and we're like a malach Elokim, that we put our strength and energy and focus into that project. At the same time, we're not stopping there. We have a second project on the other side that we're ready to start. As soon as we finish this project, already in our minds, we say, as soon as we finish this, we're going to be doing that. Because we're growing spiritually. No matter how much we accomplished, even if I learned the Talmud 100 times, I'm not stopping. I'm going to learn it 101 times. I'm going beyond my comfort zone. Regardless how old or young we are. We don't believe in retirement. It's not, oh, I'm 20 years old, I'll do that. But I'm now already 99 years old, now I can stop. Abraham, when he was 99 years old, underwent a major surgery called the bris milah. He underwent circumcision. Why? Because you never stop growing. So this is true on the spiritual realm. Then you have the idea of chewing the cud, mafreses Parsha. And that is, you take food, it's kosher food, but I'm chewing it, I'm digesting it. I'm using the energy for positive things, to do great things, to do important things. And I chew my cud a second time, because I realized even though the first time I ate it for the right reasons, which was to have strength to serve Hashem, you know what? I got to do it even more refinement, to refine the body and to refine the soul. And that is why we find that Yaakov Avinu had 2 sets of angels. Machanoim, the angels of Israel, the angels outside of Israel, because it's a double refinement. It's refining the body and refining the soul. There are people who are very comfortable in the synagogue, very comfortable in the study hall. Now they're all holy and they're godly and they're spiritual. They come home, they become tigers, they become bears, they become lions, they become real non-kosher animals. No. In Judaism, there are 2 separate paths. There are 2 sets of angels. We have to work on the spiritual. You also have to work on the physical. To be a mensch. How you talk to people. How you talk to your wife. How you talk to your husband. How you talk to your kids. How you deal with people in business. To be honest. It should be a win-win situation. It should be good for everybody. Not to deceive the customers. Not to deceive your partners. Not to deceive the fellow members, etc., etc. There should be an open conversation. And that is the way we refine the animals of the angels of the diaspora and the spiritual angels of the land of Israel. And this is the message that when Yaakov was in the diaspora, he had 2 sets of angels. To remind us that even when a Jew is outside of Israel, even when a Jew and a person is in exile, they're going through difficult times. They shouldn't say, well, now I'm going through difficult times. I can't think about spirituality. I got to think about survival. I got to think about, my food and my bread and my water and my shelter. I can't think about prayer and God and spirituality. No. Yaakov was outside of Israel. He wasn't Haran, but yet he had two sets of angels. Because he realized, and he's teaching us who we are his children, no matter where we find ourselves in the world, we always have this double mission, to refine the body and to refine the soul. So therefore, when he was outside of Israel, he had two sets of angels. But already when he was in Israel, implying that he was more refined, now his primary focus was to elevate and to ascend and to transcend even more spiritually. But yet, after we end the Parsha of Vayeitzei, we talk about two sets of angels at the beginning of the Parsha, at the end of the Parsha. Immediately we move on to Parsha Vayishlach, and again it opens up with angels. Why? What's happening here? Why was Yaakov sending angels to Esav? To tell us and to teach us that this is our global mission. That this is the concept of Lagoyim, to be a light unto all the nations of the world. That, yes, it's true, you start with yourself, you have to be better people, and you have to refine your body, refine your soul, that's great, but we didn't finish. The ultimate goal is to refine the nations of the world. Our neighbors, our friends, our community, and then the world at large. So Yaakov now sends to Esav. Esav represents Rome, represents today America, represents the rest of the world. He sends these angels to rectify and to refine Esav. This also comes back to the original story of Yaakov having the dream. We said earlier that Yaakov had a dream when he left his father's home, and he saw angels going up the ladder and going down the ladder. And Rashi tells us these were the angels that were escorting him. But the Rambam has a different interpretation. The Rambam says these represent the nations of the world, the enemies of the Jewish people, who are going to arise and who are going to fall. And it's also associated with the 4 different animals that are kosher only with one sign. So they're not really kosher. They pretend to be kosher. You have the camel, the hyrax, and the hare. These 3 animals chew their cud, but they don't have split hoofs. Then you have a 4th animal, which is the chazir, which is the pig. And that has split hoofs, but doesn't chew its cud. So the chazir sticks his feet out and says, look, I'm kosher. But really he's not kosher. So the first 3 animals, the camel, the hyrax, and the hare, represent Persia, Greece, and Babylon. They're going to go up, they're going to rise to power, and then they're going to fall. But the final exile and the final power is the chazir, representing Rome, the children of Esav, and they're going to go up. It's going to take a long time for them to come down. That's why in the Torah, in the portion of Re'eh, we find that the first 3 animals are in one verse. And the chazir is in the second verse. It's on a verse, in a verse of its own, implying that it's going to have the length of time, which is even more than the first 3 exiles. And we see now that the first exile lasted for 70 years. And then we went we had the problem with Hanukkah, with Greece, etc., etc. And we had the problem with Babylon and Persia. But this final exile is lasting a long time, over 1900 years. So we have fulfilled our obligation. It's already a long exile. It has a verse on its own. And it's time, as the Talmud says, that the chazir, the pig, is going to return and become kosher. That's the meaning of chazir. to choizer, is going to return and become kosher. In other words, that Rome and the children of Esav are going to be refined, and they're going to come back. And it's interesting that only this fourth animal will be kosher, not the other three, because the feet represent action. That the action of the chazir is good, but the intentions are not so good. So when Mashiach will come, the intentions will be transformed. We are living in a world that the action is the main thing. Ma'aser week. And therefore, if our actions are good, even though sometimes our intentions are not so good, that's more important. So here we have the entire Parsha of the week. Vayeitzei, and then Vayishlach. That generally we have an obligation to create angels. We do this by giving it our best, by giving it our all. Everything we do with tremendous zest, with excitement, with exuberance. And that is the way we create these angels that bring light and energy and blessing to the world. But it's not enough that we have one set of angels. We got to have two sets of angels. Which means everything we do, we got to double. Everything we do, we always have to increase. Everything we do, we have to do more and more. Never to be complacent with our deeds. To end with a quick story, many years ago, when we first started here in Brooklyn Heights, I had the great pleasure and the great merit to bring community people from Brooklyn Heights Sunday mornings to the Rebbe, to Lubavitcher Rebbe, to get blessings and dollars. And we did this very, very often. And I took one person, one balabus, his name is Steve Cohen, to the Rebbe. And I went by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him $1. And he told the Rebbe, I'm so excited to be here. We're doing amazing work in Brooklyn Heights. We have a shul, we have a preschool, and we're building a mikveh. And the Rebbe said to him, double as much, twice as much. He says, wow, the Rebbe is really challenging me. Twice as much. A few months later, he comes back and says, Rebbe, we're doing twice as much. And the Rebbe smiled at him, and he smiled at me, and he said, you're in competition with the rabbi? And that was a partnership that the Rebbe created. But the Rebbe said twice as much. He didn't only mean to do twice as much and stop. But as the Rebbe would say very often, the Gemara tells us, a person who acquires $100 wants $200. When you have $200, you want $400. When you have $400, you want $800. And the same is true with mitzvahs. Always do twice as much. Whatever you did and you accomplished, never rest on your laurels, but constantly grow to make sure you have machanayim, to make sure you have always these two camps of angels with you, to refine the physical, to refine the spiritual, and very, very soon to see the return of Yaakov and the children of Yaakov, and also the children of Esav. As it says, V'olu Moshiach Mahatzion, Lishpoitis Har Esav V'hoisel Hashem Hamlucha, that when Mashiach will come, he will judge the people of Esav, and then to God will be the kingship throughout the entire world. Through the coming of Mashiach, B'mheira B'meinu, Amen.